Okay.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Licensing Subcommittee. Can I just read through the protocols, please? Only speak when invited by the chair. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand and direct all communication via the chair. Will everyone please ensure that their mics are muted when they are not speaking apart from the chair? If you're having any technical difficulties, please use the details please use the chat function to alert the meeting, and you've also got the details, phone number to phone in. Any persistent disruptive behaviour will result in removal from the meeting once all applications have been considered. Any remaining parties will be asked to log out of the hearing. Please do so promptly, and your decision, you will be notified of your decision within 5 working days. If I can start off with the first item on the agenda, can we elect the chair, please?
I nominate.
I'm happy to chair.
Okay. Yep, I second it.
Yes, second that too. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, you'd like to start. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, what was that, Amanda?
If you can start with the agenda.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Yeah, so thank you very much and welcome again this afternoon. Can I see if there's any apologies for absence? It doesn't look like there are. No apologies for absence. Okay. Can I ask if there are any declarations of interest, please?
None. No declarations of interest.
No.
No.
Brilliant. Thank you. Agenda item 4, minutes of the previous meeting. No minutes included in the pack for consideration. So we will then move on to agenda item 5, the subcommittee hearing procedure. And I think, Amanda, were you going to do that?
Yes, Chair. I'll go through
Thank
that now.
you. Yes.
Before we start, someone's just joined. I just wanted to make sure with Sue Rabia that person is actually for this meeting. They were named Tony something. Can you just check, Rabia? Is that a party?
Sorry, Tony, are you the applicant? I think Tony's the applicant. Hello?
Mr. Lazari, would you like to confirm if the applicant is present? Sorry, you're on mute. Thank you. Just want to make sure we've got the right parties to the meeting.
Yeah, apologies. I can't see full details. I saw Tony log in. Mr. Manconi is indeed the applicant, and I'm his agent who's representing him.
Okay, we just want to make sure he is the correct person attending. Thank you. Okay, I'll go through the items on the agenda, on the procedure notes. Sorry, bear with me. Okay, so this is on the website, the licensing subcommittee hearing procedure. Step 1, appointment of the chair and introductions. Step 2, the licensing officer will outline the report. Step 3, the applicant's case. The applicant will present their case in support of their application. They have 5 minutes to do so. Step 4, any responsible authorities in the case, in this case it will be the licensing authority, that the chair will invite to make their representations, and they have 5 minutes to do that. And then step 5, other persons, any other parties, local residents are invited to make their representations in support or objecting to the application as contained in their written submissions, and they have 5 minutes to do that. Step 6, there will be a discussion phase where the chair will structure and lead on the discussion on the information presented, enabling the subcommittee members to clarify any points raised and ask any questions if necessary, and that will take 15 minutes. Step 7, closing remarks. The chair will ask responsible authorities, other persons and applicants and the licensing authority if they have any final comments to make. These comments can only be in relation to issues raised during the discussion. These remarks should be brief, and that will be a period of 10 minutes to do closing remarks. Any final clarifications will be asked by the licensing subcommittee members at the end, and they'll have 5 minutes to do that. The meeting will then end, and parties will be asked to leave the meeting so that the members can make their decision and consider any points after the meeting, and then you'll be notified of the outcome either later today or tomorrow morning through the licensing officer. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. That was really helpful. Hopefully that's nice and clear. And again, welcome to everyone this afternoon. We only have one full agenda item today, which is the variation of My Ex Bar, 11 Chatsworth Road, London E5 0LH. And I will hand over now to the licensing officer to outline the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. So the item we are going to consider for this afternoon is for a variation of a premises license under Section 74 of the Licensing Act 2003 for My Ex Bar, 11 Chatsworth Road, to extend the outside area until 2300 Monday to Saturday and until 22:30 Sunday, as stated within the report. Representation remains from licensing and other persons. We have received one additional information from the applicant, and this document has been circulated. I have nothing else to add. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. So nice and clear. I think what we'll do now is hand over to the applicants. You have about 5 minutes now, please, to put your case forward in support of this application. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Matt Lazari. I'm representing the applicant in this case. The variation before you seeks only to extend the operational hours of the external area, and there'll be no change to the existing hours of the premises. This variation is essential to maintain the viability of the premises. I would like to start by addressing the representations that have been received. Firstly, from Mr. Chewett, the licensing manager, who kindly reminds us of LP6. I will be addressing the additional control measures mentioned in the representation later in my submission. At this point, I would like to draw your attention to what is not in Mr. Chewett's representation, namely any history of complaints or problems at the premises, and indeed no detailed concerns with the extension at 11 Chatsworth Road. I would also like to point out the significant fact that no representations were received from any other responsible authority, and in particular, the police and environmental protection, the two primary authorities for crime and disorder and noise and antisocial behaviour. In relation to the other persons' representations received, I note from the Appendix C1, the resident that lives within, I believe, 100 feet of the premises does not reveal any current issues with 11 Chatsworth Road. The three representations from councillors, whilst I cannot question the content of this, sorry, excuse me, it's hard to read my own writing. The content of the representations given, I would point out that it appears from the one responsible authority representation that there has been no record of any incidents at the premises. I'm glad to note that the councillor C4 appendix, who lives in the vicinity, confirms that they believe the premises to be consistently complying with their conditions. My Ex Bar was granted a premises licence in 2020 and is one of 7 premises in total in Hackney that the applicant, Mr. Manconi, currently responsibly operates. My Ex Bar is a small premises with approximate capacity of 20 to 25 persons internally, with the majority seated and 10 seated persons outside, as specified in licensing condition 32. If I could turn your attention to my additional submission document, I'm not sure where that is in the pack. You will find the relevant existing conditions for the external area and the proposed amended conditions. We would seek to amend the condition 31 and 37 as specified in that document. The existing conditions limit customers outside to a maximum of 10, all seated, and all alcohol to be served by waiter, waitress. As mentioned earlier, we're proposing an additional 3 conditions to ensure that there is no loss of amenity to residents, namely additional staff training to effectively manage the premises after 10 o'clock. After 2200 hours, a member of staff to be permanently stationed outside, and additional appropriate signage to be placed on each table. There is an example, a very rough example, so I do apologise, of what will be placed on each table. If I could draw your attention to the picture below that, which shows the outside area marked, it is indeed a very small area. But things to note would be that the building at the sort of side of the building offers some building screening to the residents in Clifton Road. And we're talking about an additional 10 people outside, which would result in a maximum of 5 people talking at any one time, very close to a very, very busy road. As mentioned at the short start of my submission, the variation extension of external hours is being sought to ensure the viability of the business. The outside area represents a third of the overall capacity. The premises is relatively small, and in light of the increasing pressures on small licensed businesses from not only rising costs, higher taxation, and less customer disposable income, we now live in a world where COVID and flu infections once again appear to be on the rise. Therefore, maximising the use of external areas becomes eminently sensible. So in conclusion, I would ask you to take these points into consideration. The variation until 2300 hours Monday to Saturday and 22:30 hours on Sunday does not encroach on adult sleeping hours. There are no records of any complaints regarding the external area. The 2 leading responsible authorities, police and environmental protection, have not made representations. The existing proposed conditions will provide comprehensive control measures, and the variation is essential for the viability and the continuance of the business. I would therefore ask that the variation be granted in full. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Really appreciated. We'll come back to some of the points raised, but I want to hand over to the responsible authorities. Am I right? That's Channing today, you representing. Sorry, Councillor Rout, yes. You're on mute.
I'd just like to ask a point of clarification, really, at this point. And it's about the viability of the business. I don't know how many people the business can serve inside, but it would be useful to know. I'm just sort of slightly questioning the figures. For a business to be dependent on a relatively small increase to the outside number of drinkers to make such an impact on your viability, I just don't quite see how those figures can stack up. If you know, that's all. I'd just like a bit more detail on that, please, because as it seems to me at the moment, if your business is really that close to the edge, serving, you know, a few more drinks for an hour and a half on the weekends, and it is only a few really, doesn't seem to me to be enough to save the business, I suppose, is the bottom line.
Thank you, Councillor Rout. Yes, if you want to respond to that briefly, and then I'll hand over.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. I think I mentioned it, unless, sorry, I missed my own writing. I did state that the internal capacity is around 20 to 25. So it is a very small premises. Therefore, 10 people outside is equivalent to, you know, a third of the capacity. I would state that in the times we're living in and the pressures on license and all businesses, in fact, you know, small margins can mean survival, or it can mean not surviving. So when you've got 20 inside and 10 outside, that's quite a significant capacity. We're not talking about, you know, a large premises. We're talking about very small premises.
Okay.
Councillor Rathbone, I'll give you a moment to respond, but I do want to then move on.
So it's just purely factual, because maybe I've misread somewhere, but I thought that it was 32 customers in total with 10 outside, so that makes 22 inside.
That would be helpful to clarify. I had 25 written down, but yes.
I think I stated, Chair, sorry, I think I stated between 20 and 25.
Okay, Fantastic, thank you. We will come back to you, Councillor Rathbone, as well. Thank you. What I'll do now is move on to the other relevant responsible authorities, please. And you also have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. You can see the representation from the Licensing Authority at Appendix B on page 46 of the report. It's mainly in reference to LP6 and the use of external areas. Our current LP6 policy usually aims to restrict external areas to 10 p.m. In item 6 of the additional submissions, there probably needs to be some clarification around the training and maybe the member of staff outside. I'm not sure if that will benefit the committee, but in the representation, they were invited to make additional submissions. They've made the additional submissions, although the additional submissions don't really have that much detail. So is the training for the staff, is it something that's done in-house and recorded, or is it something that's done by some kind of accredited organisation that deals specifically with these kind of issues? Those kind of things may be helpful for the committee to make a decision. And also, just to clarify, the Licensing Authority did receive a complaint back in July of 2022. We did then go on to find the premises in breach of its condition at the time, and it was operating about 40 minutes beyond the authorised hours. But since that time, they have sought to comply. So I believe that's why Mr. Chair has probably not included that in his submission. Nothing further to add, Chair.
That's really appreciated. So to clarify, there was one complaint July 2022 around timekeeping, but that has been dealt with.
Yeah, Chair, we did investigate and we did find the premises operating beyond the hours. They were then sent a formal warning, and since that time, we haven't found them on the follow-up breaching the licence again.
Okay, thank you. That was helpful. Yes, if you want to respond, Matt, that's fine.
Thank you, Chair. While I appreciate the sentiment from Mr. Chert for not including it, I do feel a little bit ambushed with the fact that I can't respond to it because I'm not aware of that. So I don't know the circumstances, whether there was any particular exceptional reason why something happened on that day. So just to make you aware that I wasn't made aware of that, so I can't offer any evidence as to what happened on that particular day.
So this is the first you've heard of that?
It's the first I've heard, and I would have just appreciated a chance to actually respond to that.
Okay. Thank you for that. That's noted, but also thank you for your input today, Channing, as well. We're going to move on to other persons. So I think we have 2 or 3 people. I can see we have present. Let me just get the titles. So we have C1 present, C2 and C3. Is that right? C1, will you be planning to speak? That's not the gentleman that's not the councillors. Might be just listening in. Let's move on.
Oh, sorry,
That's all right.
that me?
Hi. Yes, sorry, yes. We've designated you as C1, please. Would you like some time to speak, or are you here merely to listen?
I'll say a brief word.
Thank you. Yep.
Shall I
Please go
do
ahead.
it now? Sorry.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes. Hi, my name's Oliver Reed. I live opposite the my ex, and I'm obviously a resident there, and I've lived there for 8 years. I was present at the original application for the license, where I think we went through the same process. So I'm not sure why we're doing it again, because I think it was rejected then, the late license, and now we're doing it again. But however, my basic argument is, when people sit outside and drink, they make noise. That's the nature of socializing, and especially with alcohol, whether it's it doesn't have to be a lot of noise. It's just chatting, and I know the representative, the agent, said it does not inflict on people's bedtimes, but I suppose that's subjective idea of when people go to bed. I have a young family and they're up at 6 a.m. every morning, and we both work full time. And this is just speaking for me, not the other residents around. And we try to go to bed around about 10 or 10:30. So it does inflict on our bedtimes. Now, I appreciate they want to increase it, and I know the guys at the bar there, and I've seen them, and I understand that they want to increase the space outside because it was obvious that it's very popular to sit outside, especially in the summer hours. But I think really they need to respect that it's a residential area and the people around there. And personally, I think it's too late, and it's not only 11 o'clock. You've got to take into account the packing away of the tables and everything else, and that makes a noise itself. So I don't want to be a killjoy. I like going out myself, but there needs to be a balance, and I think the times right now are what they should be, and that's what was decided, I think, before on the original license. And that is my argument.
Thank you, and thank you for your time today and taking time to attend. Can I ask for C2 to have their input, please?
I'm not a number, I am a person.
You're a number this afternoon.
Okay. Yeah. Well, my submission is on pages 49 to 50. First of all, I'd just like to make it clear, because some people seem to misunderstand these situations, that as a local councillor, as local councillors, we represent other residents who may not want to be involved in such a meeting for all kinds of reasons, without going into all the details of that. Sometimes they're very nervous about their names, and I'm glad that Oliver has come along, because I know that Oliver would be very much affected by and his young family by any extension to this license. I would like the committee to recommend that things stay the same as they are, and maybe a bit later on, when we've seen if they are going to follow it. And I would suggest after the certainly through the summer, when we have the hotter months and people are outside. I'm a bit surprised about Mr. Lawa Azari. Sorry if I haven't said your name correctly. Not knowing, because I've made a complaint in November, the very thing that you can see on page 49. And also I made a complaint about the chairs, which you can see from the photo on page 50, which for me demonstrates that there's not sufficient responsibility yet to understand you don't actually encroach upon the highway. And I know that the shop fronts license officer has spoken to somebody to do with, maybe it was the owner, whoever, about not doing that. And I understand that there is now compliance. But the problem is that when there's compliance, that's good, but we need to wait a period of time to make sure that is a continuing process and not just an immediate reaction to whatever it is that they've been told. I'd like to make one or two other points about the street itself, that obviously we don't have bars and pubs. This is why the street is so successful as a marketing street, as a market street. And we're seeking to expand the market as well, both in terms of its length and also the days that it operates. And we see the street as very much a family street, and that's not just us as councillors, that's what residents say in the consultations that we've done in the past. And the kind of place that my ex-bar is does not reflect the nature of the street. Whereas restaurants, and I know that Mr. Manconi owns Venerdis, if not 2 or 3 other properties, Venerdis has been fine, and there's been no problems whatsoever. It's just this bar And I think that underlines for me, certainly, and for others, is why we don't want bars in the street. It's because of the kind of behaviour that they exhibit. Restaurants seem to be fine. They have drinking, but they have food as well, and it works out okay. And we're very glad that, that Mr. Manconi and others have decided to invest in the street. But this particular place has caused a lot of nuisance to people over a lengthy period of time, and often residents don't complain. When residents came to me and they said, it's been going on for months and I've finally had enough and I've come to you to see if you can do anything. So it's important to realise it's not like one-off incidents, but things that have been going on for a considerable period of time. And as a result of all of that, it means that residents are losing nights' sleep. And it's to do with the noise outside. Mostly people very loud. I saw a video where people were still out at 11:45 making lots of noise. There were more than 10 people. And hopefully that will have been addressed and hopefully we can move forward. But I would say at present, please, can we just stay at what we have and let's see compliance followed through for the next year or so.
Thank you. That is really appreciated and very detailed. Thank you. I'm going to pause, Mr. Lazzari, if that's okay, and we'll come back to you in a few minutes. I just want to give room for anyone else to have any comments as well, and then we will bring it to a discussion. So please hold any comments till then. So if I can invite C3 to speak, that would be fantastic.
Thank you, Chair. Lynn Troughton, Ward Councillor in Kings Park. We have a policy for Chatsworth Road, which part of Chatsworth Road is in Kings Park Ward. Most of it is in Leabridge Ward, which is Councillor Rathbone's ward. But in general terms, we do have a policy of licensed premises not being extended until 11 o'clock for the very reasons that Oliver raised, which is that it is a very highly residential area. My X is a new venue. It's unusual for Chatsworth Road as a venue. It has created issues. There's been issues around the seating which mysteriously found its way across the road. It's near a noisy junction. So already, that is quite a noisy part of the street. The 242 comes up and turns on that corner as well. So, it's already quite stressed for a small area. So that's not a reason to increase the amount of stress in that area. Just because there is already a lot of stress doesn't mean that it can take unlimited stress. Many people, living in the area would not, the sorts of people that go to bed at 11 o'clock tend to be people who can rock up to work at 9 or 9:30. I'm afraid many of the residents in the area actually work, very early mornings, so they will often go to bed at 9 or 10 o'clock at night. Oliver referenced families, and there are many families in that vicinity. The applicant refers to providing additional staff outside, but then surely if he's going to need additional staff, that is going to have a cost implication. So I'm not sure really that the viability of that, the business viability argument stands up. I think that's more or less it. I really truly believe that 10 o'clock is quite late enough for a quiet, what is normally a residential and relatively quiet area. Restaurants have been doing very well, as Councillor Rathbone says, but they are mostly indoor venues. They do spill out outside when it's warm, but they're mostly accommodating their customers inside. So I would suggest if the applicant is very keen to have, to expand his business, perhaps he needs a bigger venue.
Thank you, Councillor Troughton. Councillor Rathbone, I think you've got one thing to say, and then we're going to open to a wider discussion.
Sorry, Chair, I forgot to mention, in fact, it comes in some papers that we received, I don't know when it was, yesterday or something, from the licensing officer about the notice, please respect our neighbours by keeping noise to a minimum. And I know when I visited the bar a month ago, and I actually spoke, I don't know if it was Mr. Manconi I spoke to, but I spoke to somebody claiming to be the owner on the phone while I was standing in the bar. One of the things I pointed out was that there was no notice up saying exactly that behind the bar. And that person said they would do it. Now, I haven't been back to check since then on that particular aspect, but I do think that should be there, and notices on the tables as well would be very, very helpful, I think, to remind the customers that they do live in a residential area where Oliver Reed lives, just across the road. Thank you.
Thank you. That's really helpful. I've got quite a few questions myself, but Mr. Lazzari, you've been very patiently waiting, so I'd like to give you a moment to speak, and then I'd really love to hear from fellow councillors as well.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of points of clarification. I just wondered whether the complaints that Councillor Rathbone had received, whether he'd actually passed those on to the relevant council departments. That's the first point. And the second clarification for Councillor Troughton is, when I said additional staff, that's my own wording. The understanding is it would be an existing member of staff who'd been trained, who were placed outside, so there wouldn't be any additional cost implications to the business. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a helpful clarification. Councillor Rout, Councillor Ozen,
Yeah,
would like to go first.
as Councillor Radmond mentioned, the signage would be helpful, not only on the table, also it would be on the walls as well. And then rather other things are very clear to me. Thank you. I don't need any also any
No further clarification?
No.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Rout.
Yeah, I've got a couple of comments really. One is to say, you know, the purpose of having a policy is to try and be fair to all businesses. And if we are to move outside of our policy, which you're asking us to do, we have to have really good reasons for it, other than simply to help a business to stay viable. Because otherwise, you know, we could have all businesses coming along and asking for something similar. I think it's, I haven't heard from you any reason other than viability to extend the hours, and that troubles me a bit, because I don't want to undermine our own policy. It's a good policy. It's there in place for a reason, particularly in an area like this. So unless you can come up with something which persuades me that there are some other good reasons for considering this, then I'm not minded to let you have what you want. One thing I would say though is Councillor Rathbone said that there are plans to expand the market nature of the street and perhaps expand the number of days that it is a market and what have you. I wonder if you're having problems making ends meet with the business, since you do have this license, which does include outside space as well, whether or not you might think about, you know, making the most of those outside hours as the street develops in the way that's being suggested. So rather than trying to get more late night hours, you know, look for more custom during the daytime or the early evening or whenever, and try and make up some money that way.
Thank you, Councillor Rout. Mr. Lazzari, if you want to respond to that, and then I have a few questions as well.
Thank you, Chair. Reasons, we've mentioned this, the viability of the premises and the pressures that are on it. And you asked me to talk about reasons why this should be granted. So what I would say, I would pick up on Councillor Troughton's comment regarding it being a noisy junction where buses turn round, and there's been some reference to it being a residential area. Having worked in Hackney for 20 years previously, I would have said Chatsworth Road was previously a very residential area, but obviously that's changing, and I would consider it to be a high street with residential behind it. and it always has been a mix of shops on Chatsworth with residential behind and above the shops. So what we're actually talking about is a maximum of 10 people sitting down in a non-regulated entertainment setting talking. So if you have 10 people, you will have between 3 and 5 people's voices in addition to an already fairly noisy landscape because of traffic levels, buses, and the existing ambient noise level. So we're not introducing a huge noise source into the area. I'm a qualified acoustician. I was previously the principal pollution control officer for Hackney for licensed premises back many years ago. So from an acoustic point of view, for the noise point of view, 3 to 5 people talking without any change in their threshold because there's no loud music going is going to not impact on that already noisy landscape. And I think it's, while it's the viability, it's also operational, because people, as time goes on, want to be out more in the fresh air because of health reasons. And therefore, using the outside space, as I've said, is eminently sensible. So if you're not introducing a dominant noise source, but allowing people to enjoy the area, then I think that's a good thing. And with regard to the market element, I'm sure that's during the day where the client has already got the outside use anyway, so we can't extend that during the day. And this extension won't affect the market element of Chatsworth Road at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Reid, I will hand over to you in a moment because I can see you've got your hand up. I wanted to just comment a little bit about the hours and pick up on something that was said previously. My concern is not just with the set hours, but would be with the dispersal time and the set down time, which invariably would extend past the actual closing time. You know, to set down, to move people on, it can take time. So that's a concern that I have, that this then spills over to 11:30, 11:45. That's a concern. So if you briefly could comment on that, please, and then I will hand over to Mr. Reid.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think that's a very reasonable concern. And maybe it should be considered that the use of the area and the tables are rendered useless by 11 o'clock. Therefore, effectively, 10:45, the area would be cleared, everything would be put away, and everything would be finished by 11 p.m. I think that's
So
eminently sensible.
The wind down time would begin before then,
Well,
is what you're saying?
Yes, it would, Chair. I wouldn't want to give an exact time, but there would be a condition which said the area to be cleared and all tables rendered useless by the completion time. So there was definitely no noise after that.
And is that something that the owner is open to as well, I presume?
Tony, would you be okay with that?
Take a moment, because I think, Mr. Reid, you did have your hand up. It's gone down. Is that right? Did you want to say anything?
I'm sorry, I just wanted to kind of come back on the residential thing. If anything, I think along Chatsworth Road has become more residential. Recently, above a lot of the shops, they've extended upwards on a number of the shops. So actually they've added flats. So there's more residents. There's probably more residents along Chatsworth Road than there were 5 years ago, because they've extended upwards because of the relaxation in planning applications. And not only that, every shop along it has residents. So the argument that it's less residential, I'm sorry, is nonsense, complete nonsense.
Thank you. Would the owner like to clarify about the earlier possibility of wind up time?
Sorry, Matt, the line is cut. I didn't hear very well.
Sorry, Chair, if you allow me to explain.
Please do.
Tony, the question was whether you were happy for there to be a condition which said that the area and all the tables and chairs were to be rendered useless or taken inside by 11 p.m. So therefore you would have to clear at 11:15, 10 to 11 to make sure that everything was completed by 11.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm happy with that. Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
yeah, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. I had one other issue that I'd like to raise, and that is around training. I'd really like to hear some clarification on where the training would be coming from. I am concerned that we're basically pulling another staff member to stand outside and be the designated person, because if you hit a time of real busyness, that person could be called back inside. It doesn't seem very certain that you've got a designated person outside. So that's a concern I do have, but it'd be useful to hear what training for anyone outside that you are hoping to provide.
Yeah, sorry, Chair, it was on my list to come back to. Obviously, a lot of points being raised. This wouldn't be in-house training. This would be bringing in a specialist. The person we have in mind is a retired police officer, 30 years in 30 years service. A lot of those in licensing. So he would be training with regard to crime disorder and looking at how to manage people and how they behave outside. So this would be specialist external training, won't be done in-house. With regard to the member of staff, there would be a waiter or waitress servicing the outside anyway, and we're only proposing it for now for a period of 30 to 45 minutes. So I don't think it's going to impact too much on that server's time, because it's only for that short period, just to ensure that anything that may be granted is properly controlled.
How would you navigate that if it suddenly did become a really busy time and they were being pulled inside and you therefore didn't have anyone outside to be monitoring?
I'm not fully conversant with the whole operation. Chatsworth Road, I did the additional licensing, the initial licensing on this premises. Maybe Tony can just offer a little bit of an insight into his staffing issues. That would be good for the committee. Tony, if you could possibly just explain how your staffing works. Thank you. Tony, can you hear us? Tony, could you just let the committee know about staffing at the premises and how the outside works at the moment?
Matt, can you hear me? Sorry.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Hear you. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the outside we can put some people to control. Anyway, all the table will be sitting, and then they're not going to be more than 10 people. So we go next door as well, which is they go until even 11:30. We never have an issue. So we can put extra person on the outside and control the people.
But my concern is if during that time you hit a busy peak time, that person will be pulled back inside to serve inside. How are you going to guarantee that there is someone monitoring outside?
But usually is that summer people they sitting outside, and also we don't have more than 10 people. And to control 10 people by one person shouldn't be any problem. And the door, the shop front is open anyway there.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lazari.
Just for point of clarification, Tony, do you have a dedicated person who serves outside? Is there a waitress or waiter that just does the outside of the premises? You're on mute, Tony.
You're on mute.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we got person which is they've been working for our other premises as well. We can bring them. They're well training, everything. They can look after outside.
Okay, thank you, Tony.
Okay, thank you. Can I just check if there are any other questions from either fellow councillors or from Mr. Reid? Anyone at all? Okay. Well, in that case, what I think we'll do is move to just our closing remarks then. And I just want to give a few moments for the responsible authorities and for the councillors present. And then finally, Mr. Lazzari, if you could give us your concluding remarks as to this specific case, that would be fantastic. But if we could start with with Channing, please.
Thank you, Chair. Nothing really more to add other than obviously the potential impacts on LP6 and the licensing objectives with regards to prevention of public nuisance and where the premise is located, perhaps the impact, although it may seem modest on the surface, it might have a deeper impact on the residents than may be expected. Again, it might be beneficial to actually seen some of the actual training documentation. That might have been helpful for the committee, but other than that, Chair, nothing further to add.
Okay, appreciated. Thank you. Councillor Rathbone, please can I ask for any concluding remarks?
Yes, just to respond, I think to Mr. Lazzari was just saying about complaints being passed on. Well, yes, I mean what's written on pages 49 to 50 has passed on as a complaint. But I also complained during the summer, and I also complained to the, I think I mentioned it before, shop fronts officer that the chairs were spreading out during the day, certainly onto the highway. So complaints have been registered. I don't know how they might have been passed on, but I certainly have made them. Just to say that I'd just like to underline Oliver Reed's statement. It is becoming more of a residential area, and it was agreed years ago, back about 7 years ago, with the then licensing committee and actually the deputy head of planning as well, that the street was a residential street with shops, not shops with residences. It is very much a residential street, and as such that you wouldn't want to be going beyond certainly 11 o'clock really, because people have to get up for work in the morning most days of the week, and obviously children have to go to school as well. So that's one particular aspect of it, and I think Mr. Artsy may have been misinformed about the street, or maybe he's thinking from some years ago. You've just got to see there are more and more new flats and house extensions being built the whole time, not just in Chatsworth Road, but the side streets as well. And sound carries well up Glenarm Road, Blurton Road, all of those roads, Rusholme and Clifton as well, when there's something going on, like the noise that came from the bar some time ago. And just to finally, just to say that, as I said before, I just think that if the committee was minded to retain what is currently the arrangements, and then just to see how it gets on in the next year, and see what happens after that.
Thank you, Councillor Rathbone. Councillor Troughton, have you got any concluding remarks?
Yes, just to say, to add that, you know, I endorse what Councillor Rathbone said, but, you know, once if the committee was minded to, you know, increase the hours of, you know, this establishment, it puts pressure on the committee to agree, you know, extensions for not identical establishments, but other establishments in the area selling alcohol, you know, would have a stronger case because of, you know, I'm thinking of retail outlets in particular in very close proximity. So I would just ask the committee to stand by LP6 and decline the application. Thank you.
Many thanks. Over to you then, Mr. Lazzari, for concluding remarks, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just I will reiterate part of my submission, but I would like to say that, and I take Councillor Rathbone's point on the additional residential, but I would say that there is noise in the area already from traffic, buses, and what we're actually talking about is an additional 3 to 5 human voices being added to that at maximum. So it would be my contention as an acoustician that would be a minimal impact on the actual already quite high ambient noise level on there. I understand that there has been more and more residential, and what I would say is that will also bring a demand for well-run entertainment spaces for people to use. And what we're asking for is a minimal increase with minimal people outside, but that will service the local community as well. And I'll just return to my previous points that I raised in my submission, which were that there is no intention to go into past 11 o'clock or into adult sleeping hours. Although I take on board everything we've been told about previous issues, there are no representations from the 2 primary authorities, and it was the police who actually suggested the original condition on here. And I would say about LP6, it says usually, so it's not a one size fits all. We're looking at an individual case. In this case, we're looking at a premises that is very small and is asking for a small extension with, as I said, 3 to 5 people will ultimately be talking outside. We have offered extra additional controls. I'm sorry I couldn't offer comprehensive notes on the training, but they will be carried out by an expert. And the person outside will be fully trained in minimising any noise, which we don't believe there will be excessive noise from 3 to 5 people talking anyway. And going back to the size of the premises, in today's business market, there are extreme pressures on every business at the moment, and so it is a very fine line between premises surviving or not surviving, and this is a very big part of helping that business to survive and to grow and be part of the community. Mr. Manconi has been operating premises in Hackney since 2009, and part of the reason why I represent him is because I believe he's a good operator. So I would ask you to look at this, and if you feel that there is a need for it to end slightly earlier or to have everything packed away by 11, I think, as we said, that is more than acceptable. So I've just asked that you grant the application in full. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I don't believe there's any more questions, or are there any other points of clarification from anyone? No, okay. I don't think there's any further business for consideration, so I will now at this point draw the meeting to an end and thank everyone for their time and their input. I think we can stop recording the live stream, and you will be notified of a decision. I think is it the next 24 hours? Is that right? Yeah. Okay. So we will be notifying you of the decision within the next 24 hours. So thank you everyone for your time today, and we will see you soon.